Hey folks, Dean Gazowski here with 3D Property Solutions. I'm starting to hear a lot of chatter on the overall media outlets that is alluding to a foreclosure crisis. And what I would like to do today is just cover some of the basics, not really get too in depth, but just cover some of the basics to maybe help put your mind at ease with some of the things that are going on in the current Michigan market, specifically Metro Detroit. Okay. So a lot of the stuff that you're going to hear from the media is nationwide numbers, right? Or our nationwide numbers, I should say. Working on becoming better, right? So listen, big general numbers, okay? There's a website out there called Black Knight, and they claim that they track all the mortgage statistics that are out there. They claim that there's just under 2 million folks that are currently in forbearance. Okay, that's one of the hot buttons right now. People were laid off, they couldn't work, they didn't have access to employment, whatever the situation was, they weren't paying their mortgage. Now, a lot of the banks are working through that process, and one thing that really comes to mind before I get into all the numbers here is this. When people talk about a crisis, however you say that, plural, it never happens the same way twice. Okay, so let's get into some of the numbers and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more here. So, pending foreclosure crisis. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you, mass media, because what you're doing is you're driving fear in some cases and it's not always appropriate. Let's look at the numbers. So, August 2021, last month, okay, we had in the state of Michigan, we had less than 200 foreclosures, okay? Now, we're still under the foreclosure moratorium. You got to understand that. Even though the Supreme Court voted to go ahead and release, we're still dealing with local restrictions on this. So, people aren't getting foreclosed on right now. But you go all the way back to same month, August 2010, and we had over 6,000. In fact, the one number I do have committed to memory is February of 2010. We had 6,600 foreclosures in that month. Okay, think about the big difference here. Now, the question is why are we not going into a big foreclosure crisis? Well, there's a couple different ways that we can avoid this, right? So number one is the appreciation. Secondly is demand. But let's talk about depreciation here for just a moment. Did you hear about your neighbor? Your neighbor that sold the house in a multiple offer situation for $30,000 above, appraisal value. That was the guarantee. I mean, situations like this are happening in some particular neighborhoods, but let's take the neighborhood that I grew up in. Over at the corner of Wayne and Warren in Westland, we flipped a house there last year, and that house sold top notch, sold for $180,000. This summer, there were houses there in that particular neighborhood that were selling for north of $200,000 and even north of $220,000 in some cases. Now, when you have appreciation that's happening that quickly and somebody's not paying their bill, their mortgage payment, what happens? If they do go into foreclosure, what happens? Well, I have to make a strong case for this. If there's equity and the person has to move, why wouldn't they just sell it on the open market and capture that equity position and then move out to a rental or somewhere like that? Okay, so there's been so much appreciation so quickly over the past year and a half, really. I just don't know that we're going to be dealing with a crisis here. The other point that I'd make is the demand. All right, you're still dealing with multiple offer situations, even in this, the cyclical market that we're dealing with. All right, we're going into the colder season, which the market tends to slow down. We still have demand. I mean, it's not what it was in the middle of July, but you get what I'm saying, right? If you put a house in the market and it's good enough and priced right, it's going to sell. So it's very important to get connected with a local expert. All right, and that's where the plug for 3D Property Solutions comes in, okay? Whether you're an agent and you want to talk investment opportunities or trends, stuff like that, because we watch the numbers. Or if you're somebody who's looking to sell a house, feel free to reach out to us. My name's Dean. I'm one of the partners over here at 3D Property Solutions. My direct line is 248-940-1099.